It's not Michigan, sorry, it's Oaxaca, Mexico. I'm from Michigan, United States, so that's where I came from.
Oh, fair enough. I didn't know that you're from Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
nice.
anyway.
San Jose. Josh, nice that you're here. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's always.
Yeah, I'm in fucking San Jose, in Oaxaca, in Mexico. Fuck. And the day I arrived here, I met Josh. Super, super, super interesting guy. Fuck my life.
A little bit of an asshole, but
yeah, could be as well, but no. What I really appreciate about Josh, like we're talking, I guess for 10 minutes or something, and after 10 minutes, he just sent me his whole book that he's currently writing, right?
Right, that's true.
And that's so fucking amazing, man. I mean, who is just sending a book to a stranger,
Well,
like,
I mean, I'm of the philosophy that things that are true and worth things, it shouldn't be sold. Real value doesn't come from money, and usually I find that money destroys the value of real value. So the only way I could imagine moving forward with the project I'm working on is by giving it away for free. The world stays in darkness when knowledge is kept hidden and locked away, and for only those that can pay for it, because the ones without the money are the ones that need to know more stuff, apparently. You know what I mean? So it's just the same kind of concept as research documents that I see online, and that you have to pay to access, like $40 for a damn study, a fucking scientific research paper that would teach people stuff.
Yeah.
But they're not going to read it because they don't have the money to pay for it, or a card to enter online. It's just, there's barriers to learning life that shouldn't exist. And I just try to be the change so that I can see the change, man.
cash rules everything around me.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Love does, but they've confused love for fear, and money is really the worship of fear, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but still, you're trying to change that, right? Because the title of your book is becoming a superhero by ditching the costume, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Ditch
How
the
come,
costume. Well, because the real nature of a human being is divine, eternal, almighty spirit, right? But the costume they put on is one of a flesh suit that's limited to time and space, and very, very pathetic in its abilities to produce stuff with physical efforts, but it's extremely unlimited in its ability to manifest from the spiritual realm. And so by taking off the costume, returning to knowledge of your original form while still possessing the form you're in, you can avail yourself of both benefit of both perspectives, the eternal and the physical time and space mortal reality. It's the better of both worlds.
I mean, sounds, quite logical, but how do we get to this point, man?
It's really, the universe is set up to reward the sacrifice one makes in the pursuit of themselves, all right? Most people are preoccupied completely in their whole life with this running away from themselves. You got to get to the point of running away with yourself, all right? And that happens by refusing to participate any longer in this circus charade called life on planet Earth, where people trade the energy their lives produce for a diminished return on their investment in the form of dollars, which each represent a share of slave ownership. People don't realize it's a part of themselves they're getting back, and a very small one. You know what I mean? They're trading their life for a survival.
Man, that's I don't know how to explain myself, because when I'm listening to you, you're just spitting valuable shit all the time, and it's like, for me, like, who is not talking English like as a native tongue, as a mother tongue, it's like sometimes like, fuck.
Well, feel free to ask me to rephrase, or you know what I mean?
Sure. I get one specific question, because I've been listening to you 2 days ago. You've been talking to a guy, I don't know his name, but whatever.
Yeah.
You've been talking about the ego.
Yeah,
and I've been learning that the ego is a separate mind that struggles for its own survival.
Yes.
But you said something that you became best friend with your ego,
Absolutely.
and together you're discovering the whole world together, right?
Yeah, correct. Well, see, the ego is it's a defense mechanism of sorts of the human being, and the way that it protects the human. Well, the human's a product of an instinct to survive mixed with a consciousness or a belief in mortality, right? And that produces the ego, which pretends to deny that it's going to die while going about having so-called answers that really don't amount to anything. So the ego could be summed up as the thing that pretends to have all the answers while knowing nothing to protect you from the idea that you're going to die, right? But you can convert the ego. It's all a part of you. You're never going to get rid of it. So don't try to kill your ego. You will never get away from it. All you're going to do is fracture yourself. But when you make it your friend and you retrain it to reward your ego, instead of finding value in being pompous and full of shit, right? And saying things that aren't any truth whatsoever, but sound good, mean nothing. You reward yourself for finding the questions that lead to the real answers. And the ego becomes the part of you that becomes the very best you can imagine at finding the questions instead of pretending to have the answers. And after it finds the questions, then it does have the answers, because the human consciousness literally has access to the entirety of the universal data bank of information and data. It's the questions of the human that illuminate the pieces of that information. But when someone's ego-driven, thinking that by the answer having ego, they don't really have many questions. So they don't really know jack shit. But as soon as they realize they don't know jack shit and admit it to the universe, what I did one day, it was like 6 years ago, going on 7, I'm like, this is not working. Whatever the fuck I believe about this is must not be true, because it'd be working better if it was. And I'm like, all right, universe, like, I reject everything I've been taught or led to believe about truth or spirit or God, but I know there's some truth out there, and I'm gonna have to ask you to show me what it is. And my fucking universe grabbed me up real quick, man.
Oh fuck!
Sorry.
Wait, we'll just.
I think
talk.
Yeah, the universe grabbed me up real quick, and is everything all right?
Yeah, everything all right.
All right. And I immediately began realizing, like, what the truth was. I mean, it started with, at the time, I was a religious fundamentalist. I had my undergrad degree was in biblical studies, and then I went to law school, but I was very hardcore fundamentalist religion. But what happened was that totally forgot what I was saying. What started to change that was when I was preparing for law school. I had to take the law school admissions test. There's a test, and it has 3 sections: logic games, verbal reasoning, and reading comprehension. And I've always been real good with words. Logic, I don't even give a fuck about. So when I took the first verbal reasoning section, which is like, gives you a passage of text.
Just hold it.
Oh, yeah.
This. Thanks.
It gives you a passage of text that is your universe, the facts of your universe. It's a parameters, and then it asks you questions of, like, what may be true, what can be true, can't be true, and must be true.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to figure out what it is. I was almost ready to kill myself. Well, not really, but when I realized I got 1 out of 24 right on my first practice exam, 1 out of 24 with words, and they're my thing. Like, what the hell happened? So.
Yeah, what did happen?
What happened was I realized, and I ended up actually literally acing that section of the test. The test never happened before. It's built not to be able to be aced. I literally ended up getting 24 out of 24 right on the actual test, because I fixed my thinking. I realized what I was doing is making blanks in the universe that's created, like making blanks that don't exist and filling it in with what I felt should be true, my biased and prejudiced beliefs, my emotional, unreasonable thoughts about what life should be or people should act like. And so I'd answer, I'd just plug in, if, for example, it was something about abortion, I would fill in the blank completely, you know what I mean, emotional, subjective bias basis from the whole religious thing. And so I really disciplined myself as a machine to literally pick every single part of every belief I had apart and figure out where it didn't connect to reality. Right?
But how, like, you're talking about it that so easily, you know?
Yeah.
But how did you get to this point to realize, to be conscious about some things, to act like this? How did you acquire this mindset?
It was all kind of by accident, man. It was all by coincidental synchronicity, but it wasn't. I just knew one day. I mean, I have 4 daughters that the world has stolen from me in the meantime while I've been fixing the planet, more or less. But having them and realizing there was a failure of love within myself, I was unable to express the love for them that I had. And
that's pretty strong to admit that, I would say.
Yeah. And then I realized, watching the older men around me that were in the same lifestyle that I was pretending was working, were no different. They were just as harsh, just as short-tempered and impatient with my children as I was. And I just realized there was too much at stake to continue going the wrong direction, hoping to end up somewhere else. So that was the first step. I didn't have a clue to trust myself. I realized, like, I'd tried everything else there was to try, like going exact opposite way of where everyone said to go in rebellion, and then going the exact way everyone said to go in conformity.
Mm-hmm.
But both ways, going in rebellion, I felt bad because I thought I should be maybe doing what they said I should be doing. Then when I was going in the direction they said I should be going, I realized it was empty, hollow, and bullshit. So the only place left to go was to wherever I felt was right and desired, with complete confidence and faith and trust in myself that it would lead to where I wanted to be. It took a number of years to really see that, but we're damned if it didn't happen. And
So you didn't go this way, and you didn't go the other way.
Yeah.
You chose your path.
Correct.
And what is your path?
It's just I don't have one. Whatever I want or desire, I don't have a path. It's more of a random fucking back roads of the country or something. As soon as what I desire, I go after. I mean, I just go. Whenever I want to do something, be somewhere, talk to somebody. I mean, whatever it is, I feel like doing in the moment, the desire to do it, I will go after it with everything I got, because I always know there will be another desire to pursue if something doesn't go through with the one I'm pursuing. So there's always something to desire, go after, have fun with. And in the meantime, man, you just discover inside of yourself, and this is true for all humans. I'm just one human. You find the answers to the craziest shit. The universe literally dropped in my lap. The project of this book, it's the Becoming a Superhero is somewhat misleading. It's a turnaround guide to fucking planet Earth. It includes technology for returning to original electricity that powers our planet, copying it in a sympathetic and symbiotic way to produce abundant, unlimited electricity. Details are all in the book, all of it that any elementary level scientist would be able to understand. And economic strategy to release with the new energy technology of a cryptocurrency that is literally fully distributed up front freely to the poorest 99% of people and the richest 1% left out, with the ability to buy one thing with the new currency immediately, and that is a personal energy device. And immediately, overnight, fucking the petroleum industry's over, because then the dollar ends with that. Everybody's got new money except for the rich people. And all of a sudden, the employees are asking to be paid in the new money because it's the only one with value, and all the people on Earth that have it are asking to spend it in their favorite stores where the rich people own and have none of the currency. So then all of a sudden, we've accomplished something, I think, an overhaul of the entire system. But this I didn't realize, man, this got dropped on me a couple of years ago. I'm a lawyer by training, but I spent over 15,000 hours in the last, well, more than 25, I don't even know. But in a year, I did over 12,000 hours of study, of experimentation, of everything from the ground up, following the trail of what we did to build our completely broken electrical system. I mean, I figured it could.
So what we did to build, like, the whole human beings, what they tried to build, or who do you think about?
What do you mean?
No, because what did you try to figure out? Like,
well, just what was going on with the planet, right?
With the planet in general, okay.
Yeah. Like, what the hell is, like, for a year, I mean, people would ask me what I was doing, and I didn't even know it at first. I'm like, I'm solving the problem of the world. And I'm like, goddamn, if I didn't do it. But it's really just a matter of how can I make sure my daughters inherit a future that I'm proud to hand them. And the only way I could,
man,
the only way I could figure out how to do it was to make a world where everybody wins. Because too many people lose these days to be confident that my daughters would experience a good life.
And how are you gonna create this world? Is this book one step?
It's the only step needed. It's a comprehensive turnaround guide to the whole planet. It's to all the thinking. I mean, the chapter titles like "Do drugs, don't vote, don't go to school, don't go to the doctor, take your meds." All the common sense shit that people need to realize. The world has told them one thing that's obviously leading them in the wrong direction, because if it were not leading them in the wrong direction, they'd be doing something that looked a little nicer and more loving.
But for example, like, I guess you understand when I'm asking why should we not go to school? Like,
because the human being comes fully equipped with everything it needs by following its desires to encounter the lessons it needs to learn, and to learn them extremely effectively. I did it. I fucking figured out the problems of this whole damn world. But we take our children who have the new fresh ideas, and instead of teaching them the problems and giving them open free range with the solutions, we give them the fucking solutions that are really the problems, since they go do more of this.
Whoa, that's hard, man. And valuable shit. Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, none of it's more than really common sense when you come down to it. The simplest things are always the most profound for some reason, you know? Children, the reason that they're all having trouble paying attention and getting methamphetamines, more or less, to reprogram their brains to consider boring shit interesting, is because they're being taught a bunch of bullshit that their minds know isn't true. Their hearts feel isn't true, at least, because they're still connected to the eternal. And it's not even real, the shit they teach and expect the kids to regurgitate. It might have been what someone thought at one point. It doesn't make it reality. And science has been killed because everybody's been taught that it's about having the answers instead of learning stuff. You're knowing things instead of learning things, finding the answers and having the answers instead of finding the questions, really. Science is about science. These motherfuckers think all of nature in the universe is limited to what their science presently understands, as if they don't recall all the times they learned something new.
Man, but on the other hand, like, going to school in general, educating yourself isn't something bad, right? Because
no, but you go to the school.
Yeah, no, tell me.
Go to the school of life, though. The school, the paper you get. I mean, the whole system can't be for your education. I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
If it were in the United States, they wouldn't burden the students with immense amounts of debt because education should be contributing to a civilized industrialized society.
Mm-hmm.
But since they're burdening the people with this fucking educational debt, the only reason that remains for them to have the whole system in place is to entrench the slave further in its indenturedness, like indentured servants going further into debt, make better slaves. I mean,
making better slaves.
Yeah,
you get a point, man. I've been reading a book. It describes school in general like that. Imagine you're in a class full of animals, like you, for example, are a bird. Then there is a whale, a giraffe, a lion, a duck, a monkey, and whatever.
Yeah.
An eagle, you know?
Yep.
And now everybody has the course swimming, then running, then flying. Nobody can do it like...
Nobody can do all of it. They all have specializations.
Yeah, and I guess like the point... I mean, I get it that there's some... that the education system in general all over the world is lacking. Yeah. And because you're trying to generalize one thing over everybody, but you should individualize the education system to everybody, right? You should figure out the highest potential of one individual being.
Absolutely.
And then try to evolve it to the...
Correct. And but what's really clear from the system as a whole is the fact that it's not built to teach people how to think. It's built to teach them what to think. And that what is guaranteed to be what the rich person set the curriculum to teach them to think that served the rich people, for real. Like the whole American education, United States education system, and probably around the damn world, is built on producing factory workers for wartime. That's why there's a 30-minute lunch, there's bells between classes and moving between workstations. The same model is still being used, even though we're not really probably going to be building more bombs for warfare because... Well, no, they don't hire them. I mean, they just do other stuff now. They use laser weapons. I mean, it's just not necessary to train all the people in the world through school of how to be bomb builders.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we need to start teaching the children how to think. I heard somewhere over in like Norway or somewhere in that area.
In Scandinavia in general, yeah? Yeah. Go ahead.
They're doing something more like that. They're presenting the problems to the children.
Exactly.
And allowing them to come up with their own solutions to it, and that's going to work.
Yeah, in that case, school is a good thing.
Yeah.
I get it totally, like, because I attended a school. Wait, I'm just going to check if... Okay. Sometimes my phone is struggling with the heat of the sun, and it's turning off, but still it's working.
It's all right now.
Fair enough.
Cool.
I've been going to school where I felt like a machine.
Yeah.
Like it was an electrical engineering high school, more or less. Okay. Like it was something in between college and high school, some specific thing in Austria. And for real, man, you were just a robot all the time.
Yep.
All the time. There is one specific way to solve a problem, and that's the only thing.
They don't want you to come up with better ways. They just want you to keep doing the same shit they've been doing.
And I don't know. It's holding you back. Yeah. This is holding you back. But on the other hand, if I, for example, I did that school for one reason, because my father said, do that, you're going to have a safe job afterwards. He was completely right. But what he didn't take into account, am I going to be happy? And I was always conscious about my strengths, but it goes like in terms of like into the road of journalism, writing and da-da-da-da-da. And if, for example, I would have gone to a school that is focusing more on that, I know that I would have fulfilled my potential faster. I'm still fulfilling it by doing what I love, by like writing da-da-da-da-da-da-da while traveling, and I'm completely satisfied. But I'm aware of the fact that I'm the minority who is doing that.
Fair enough, yeah. Well, I mean, none of our experiences are wasted unless we consider them to be on a waste, right? Every experience we've had is something of value. It makes us who we are. And me personally, these days, I love myself so much I wouldn't change a fucking thing about my past, because then I wouldn't be me, goddammit.
Yeah, man.
Some of it's been a bitch. I'll tell you, some of it's been more miserable. I mean, you can't even imagine. You have your own, everybody has their own, but I mean, it just all feels the same. But this shit's crazy, man. But I wouldn't change any of it because it's created some beauty somewhere along the way.
But since we were talking about school, like, how about you? Like, what kind of school did you attend? And
I mean,
What were your
I
experiences?
dropped out of high school in 1996.
Yeah?
And spent 10 years fucking in and out of the sex, drugs, rock and roll, a little bit of jail stuff, selling drugs, that kind of thing. Then in 2005, I decided to flip the Christian switch and immediately met like the most amazingly Christian woman you could imagine. 24 years old, the first guy she ever kissed. It was amazing. She's the most honest, loyal, faithful, and downright mean person you can imagine. Oh, hold on. You gotta edit that out, would you?
Okay.
No, don't edit that out. I'm just kidding.
Yeah?
I don't care.
Yeah,
But I mean, she stole my children for no reason except that I went sane, and that wasn't very nice. But so dropped out of high school. Then when I met her for the first time ever, I was sufficiently afraid in life. I had myself a warden, right? I was sufficiently afraid to do the normal things that were always so fucking empty. I mean, I held a job with my GED. I sold software and was earning $80,000 a year with fucking GED. Then after I got laid off from that job, the economy downturn, I went back to school. I finished fucking undergrad in biblical studies and Juris Doctor in 4 years instead of the traditional 7 by testing out of like 33 credits and then taking 26 credits per semester.
Okay.
For that 3 institutions.
Just sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no.
Hold the microphone like this.
All right.
Like just to
Like that, yeah.
to maintain a good quality.
So I mean, I finished law school, but I knew halfway through it that I wasn't going to practice because it was really a soul-consuming industry, more or less.
Yeah.
And I was working in personal injury when some friends of our family, I didn't even know them, but they were people that my family knew. And we're on a motorcycle trip, father and son, to Texas, where I was in school working for a personal injury firm too. And the father watched his son get killed, run over by a truck driving team, husband and wife that were intoxicated or something, behind him in his rearview mirror. And the first thing I thought was, that's like a $30 million case. Have them call me. I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Somebody just watched their kid get killed, and the first thing I'm thinking about is money. That's not going to work out for me too well. So I quit that job like a week later.
Well, so was that case like the turning point?
Yeah, it was the realization, like, I can't sell that. I've sold my soul, more or less. Like, I've sold my humanity, right?
Man.
Like, I didn't even think, like, oh, that's sad. I thought, that's a lot of money.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, man. So at that point, I was at the end of my summer of my second year. I still had one more year of school to do, and I did it, but I never really planned on practicing. And then, man, it's wild. So that's my educational experience. I have like fucking $1 million in school debt right now from grad plus loans and interest, even though I got pretty much a full scholarship to fucking law school. I took out the max in child care loans, got a family and stuff, and a wife that stayed home with the kids, and but it did me absolutely no good. I mean, it did me comparing that, and then I spent the next 6 years literally locked away almost all exclusively by myself, exploring, studying, and learning the inside of me, which I found at the end contained a map to the keys of the universe.
and where did you lock yourself?
I was in Michigan in a basement apartment owned by my family. I was there for fucking ever. Well, I mean, it seemed like that. It was a long process. And the studying I did, I took studies and just read them, like the pieces. I didn't take someone else's synthesis of them like they do in schools. Took the raw data, processed it, and came to sound conclusions that happen to be completely different than anyone else seems to think is the case. But I know it's just, I can look at it and be like, yep, the logical reasoning and reading comprehension part, I aced the reading comprehension part on the test too. And literally, what that really means is, and I can experience it for my whole life, when I read something, I don't forget what it said, and I'm never wrong in my understanding of what it meant. Now, before I fixed my my reasoning part, right? But since I became a machine with it, I don't even make a conclusion until I have sufficient inputs to know nothing else is possible and only this is possible. You know what I mean? If you remain open-minded, you'll continue gathering information openly instead of with confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance, and you'll continually see things in an expansive, evolving manner. But I swear to God, the people I've met with education seem to be some of the dumbest motherfuckers I've ever met. They're so self-righteous with the things they were taught because they had to compete over learning the nonsense, and somehow they won. So they defend the nonsense that they learned as if they came up with it.
They think they know something, but in reality they don't know nothing, right?
They don't at all. No, you're from an electrical background. Let me give you an example of this. All right, so there's a phenomenon you might be familiar with. It's called feedback gain. There's positive feedback gain, or the positive feedback gain. Mathematically defined, positive feedback gain is defined mathematically as gain over input. But I've gotten so many arguments with electrical engineers who will literally try to kill you for saying that and demand that it is gain from input. And I'm like, that is mathematically impossible. It can't be gain over input. And I'll tell you how the gain from input occurs. Because when a coil of copper is carrying an a current, it produces an electromagnetic field. And that electromagnetic field works upon the same coil of copper to produce a new voltage called high voltage. And that's wasted by iron cores turned into heat and dissipated. You got to use wood to do it. And that converts it back into usable. But they literally call this phenomena of this additional energy a parasitic oscillation. It's their source energy and resonance with it. But imagine the human being, parasitic viral fungus of the universe, calling its source energy a parasite. It's literally their salvation. When you loop two inverse frequencies, like a microphone and a speaker, I mean, you probably know this, there's the same device, a microphone and a speaker, just have one of the wires twisted around. When they loop, it creates the... and not the original sound, because it literally is a resonance with nothing. It's resonating with our source, which is nothing. And in the middle of the planet, they've recorded sounds exactly like that one in the Marianas Trench in the deepest parts of the ocean, coming from the center of the Earth. Sound just like the microphone speaker feedback loop. And when that microphone and speaker are looping, it literally is opened a portal in the voice coil of the speaker through which electromagnetic field escapes. And it's what causes the sound to increase perpetually.
Why do you know that?
Because I created the universe, just like you. I just happen to have remembered all of it. And I thought about it for long enough to see... Well, really, I started by following Nikola Tesla. I began with the idea that this guy must have known something I didn't, and he wasn't crazy or wrong the only time in life of his by offering free abundant electricity, right? I decided he must... we're still using everything he created. He was never wrong another time. He must have known something I didn't. Yeah. That's where you get when you get past the ego. The ego presumes everyone else is limited to their own stupidity. No, motherfuckers... Yeah. But so I just followed his steps looking for how it could be true. And literally what he had produced using trees and natural components and a little bit of metal as well, mirroring in inverse the natural generator of the planet, is a microphone speaker feedback loop is what he did. And it literally emanates an electromagnetic field within a Faraday cage that's constantly amplifying, and it escapes. The ions escape from it and causes lightning. Literally shoot out the fucking roots of a tree when you put the roots in the air and the crown in the ground. That's what he did.
So guys and everybody who is actually watching but not watching because because my phone fucked it up, but doesn't matter. We're gonna continue. We're gonna just fucking continue. Am I? Oh fuck! So much information overload. But about Nikola Tesla in general, how were you always interested in his work, or how did you come? How come that you just deal with his life and everything? And
it's weird. The first time I ever heard of Nikola Tesla was in a book that I read while I was in jail once. All right, in a Dean Koontz book. All right, yeah, and it told a story of his wireless transmission of electricity. I'm like, what? But this was years and years ago. But then, during this time, I was locked away just figuring out what the fuck and who the fuck and where the fuck, why the fuck I was, right? I got dropped on me this literally a vision of an evolution to magnetics that was necessary. An evolution from electromagnetic to quantum magnetics. I had no physics background, no electrical background, no none background except the ability to read and understand shit, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd been doing, and the motivation when my ex-wife literally the world stole my children, not just her, but for apparently the most beautiful reason ever, because it was in that process that I said, what's the biggest thing Daddy can do to show his babies he left for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. And I literally came by fixing the planet with it, but it was fucking weird. So I started sort of studying ancient civilizations. I just knew that I was just receiving tons of download information. The day Stephen Hawking died, I received just a massive download of just crazy information, right? And I had a lot of help from Google. Sometimes I'd be researching something, I'd type in one search term, completely something else would come up, but it'd be exactly what I needed. I had friends see this, we're like, this can't be what Google thought I meant, but oh my God, wait, hold on a second. That's exactly what I needed. And it required the ability to slow down and consider that things not what you were looking for were actually what you were looking for. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You don't always know what you're looking for, but it will always show up, and you'll find it if you are paying attention, right? So, but this, I started studying the ancient civilizations, then I realized what Tesla was doing. Literally, he had copied them as well, but evolved it a little bit into a different shape. It's a flat, instead of a round circle like the Earth with pyramids on it, he's got a flat coil with a pyramidal shapes in it, right? So, I mean, I don't know. It was weird. I was just led there. I'm pretty sure that I was interacting, or maybe still be interacting with his spirit somehow, because I was led. I didn't know shit at first, and then the questions would keep coming to mind, and those would lead me to the answer. And it's amazing. It really is. Because see, the forces of gravity, gravitational waves, they were discovered by NASA in 2017. They're a quadrupole force, have 4 polarities, right? And the way they detected them, because they're dumb, they used a 3-kilometer straight line array called LIGO, it's straight lines, to capture gravitational waves, which are like circular in nature. Now, if anybody knows anything about receiving signals of electromagnetic nature, you really just want to build your antenna in some form or fashion that resembles the wavelength you're trying to pick up. Well, you're going to build some straight lines and pick up circular waves, and they're only intermittent. Well, you're damn lucky you even got them then. You know what I mean? But because you can take a set of concentric circles, right? You could draw them on a piece of paper, concentric circles, and watch the light that's going around the circle bend. You can watch the movement in there. People go, oh, that's an illusion. Well, yeah, but who told you anything looks like it's moving in this universe without real energy being involved? If they did, you shouldn't have believed them, because just like a mirage was real heat waves rising from the pavement, the movement inside the circles is real energy moving around. It's the light being bent by the gravity forces because it has a magnetic field, right? So when you charge a flat metal coil with a static charge, right, it will literally produce a magnetic field that's constantly fluxing without cost. Just put it around a coil of copper and it will literally just release into the air usable frequency. I had in my experiments back in Michigan, I did that. And I'm not a builder, but I cruded something together. Took a fan with metal grates, and I put one on top, one on the bottom of a Tesla coil that was insulated with wood from the metal. And I connected one high voltage lead to the top and one to the bottom grate. And they weren't connected, so nothing was transferring or moving. And even if they were connected, with static, you touch it together, or with high voltage, you touch it together, it's static, right? So in the air, my multimeter is picking up a 330 volt signal, right? When I put my right hand into the field, it doubled to 660. My left hand caused it to max out my multimeter at 1,000 volts, right? My assistant, my dad, we both put our right hands in there, and it still just doubled to 660. I'm like, well, pretty sure, and it occurred to me, I didn't test it to confirm, but I'm rather convinced that means that our system's energy is regulated with our consciousness. And in that situation of 660 volts with both our hands in it, if we had introduced a draw to it, it would have stayed constant at 660 volts. Because we wouldn't want to overload the system and blow people up. But that's the reason that the left hand was more, is because it's directly connected to the heart, which is the magnetic pump of the body, right? So the humans literally have an electrostatic magnetic field that can be used when amplified properly to produce a bubble of personal energy that not only powers everything around them, but effectively connects their heart to their mind. Because at this moment, the magnetic field of the human being is a bubble around the chest area and a cone where the head is. The head is literally outside of the cone of the magnetic field of the heart. That's why there's so much communicational difficulties between the two. But that's also why when a baby is a baby and its neck's really short, they're really peaceful, because their head hasn't gotten long enough. Their neck hasn't gotten long enough to separate them. But then they get a little bigger, and all of a sudden they're fucked up. So, chakras are an alternative communication path to communicate the mushrooms as well. Fungus connects with the body's, with the blood and the psilocybin, just like the roots of trees. Have you read The Secret Life of Trees?
No, I didn't.
You heard about it?
Who is the author?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's called The Secret Life of Trees, and it's about how forests communicate resources and other things through the mycelium layer of the planet. The fungus actually combines with the roots of the tree to facilitate almost global communication, intracontinental communication. They literally have done studies, and they've found resources being sent from one place in the forest to another where they'd covered a tree up and it wasn't receiving the resources. They literally teleport, apparently, because the only way you're going to send a fucking physical resource through an electrical system, I do imagine, is teleportation. So I'm pretty sure the trees are teleporting resources to each other. But the same thing, mushrooms in the body does this too. It's really a process. You don't need to use them forever. You just need to learn. The heart and the mind have different languages. And there is a communication channel. The magnetic field lines come up from the heart, out through the head, filter through the environment around you, and come back in through the feet, and to be interpreted again. And it's kind of polluted everywhere out there for a while. And so it's really necessary. Like when I first really started the awakening, just before I came to Mexico a couple years ago, I'd started singing in a language that I didn't even know what the fuck it was. But I knew it was songs in real words. There were a lot of them, and it was nuanced. And as I've learned Spanish, I realized it's Spanish. It's Spanish. But it was a little different because the letters and the words were separated. They were the same words, but they're separated by like one little piece of like one letter or something. Like that one syllable was different. So it was like from way long ago, more or less, like an ancient, part of my composition. It's weird. It's weird. And then the whole world will demonize you for talking to yourself, but the only way you're going to ever make friends with yourself is to talk to yourself. That's why I talk to myself all fucking time.
Can you please make your own podcast, man? For real, like,
yeah,
I could listen to you all the time. I don't have any questions. I mean, I have a bunch of questions, but I don't know how. Fuck.
Maybe I will. This chick that I just met, that we're going to Palenque tomorrow. You can probably listen there. We might. I just need some. I don't want to say. I talk to myself, but when I talk to myself, it's not really for the benefit of other people that much. I don't know. I mean, it's not that. I don't mind it. I just don't take the initiative. I don't think it through. I just do it, and then by the time I realize I should have recorded, it's over.
To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person, right? Or
partly.
not?
Partly, the way a person discovers their beauty is the attraction to their own beauty in another person.
Yeah.
But once they've found that, and the love that comes from ridding themselves of hypocrisy, because when you love somebody else, when you're truly connected to another person, it's fucking crazy. It triggers a Kundalini awakening, like with the energy of the Kundalini, which just is a beast of an energy, but it'll fuck you all the way up before it puts you back together. But every time I would point at this chick, the last girlfriend I had years ago, every time I would point at this chick to say, like, you're a this or that, I'd realize I'm pointing at myself, because I'm being accused of being the same things by my ex-wife and other people, you know what I'm saying? And so I wouldn't say shit. I'd be like, I can't even do it. And so slowly the hypocrisy totally went away. I'd stop even thinking it was important to point a finger and accuse of something. And then after that happened, I found unconditional love for this chick. She was all manner of just hurt by this world. I loved her to death. But she had a lot of ugly come out. And I got to a point where I just accepted it. I was fighting it. I'm like, all right, look, man, I just realized now that I love you too much to actually leave you for the shit, so I'm not actually going to fucking complain about it anymore until I'm going. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not going to do it. We'll be all right. And so I then realized that after unconditionally accepting her, I came to I realized that it would be hypocritical to not unconditionally accept myself. Because even if she's all the same things that I might be, if I'm going to unconditionally love and accept another person, I'm going to have to accept myself and love myself the same way, because otherwise I'd be a hypocrite, and I'm not that anymore. So immediately after that, craziest shit, we're in the car, I'm fighting with this chick as usual. Fair, but listening to some music that I always be singing romantic, right, like feeling toward her, right? And I'm singing the song, I'm just in my own little space, and all of a sudden, the fucking feelings of the romance stuff is coming toward me, from me. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is even a thing? Or is this? Who does this? And I'm like, well, fuck, I'll go with it, because that was the last moment I ever felt a need for anything or anyone, really. It was just peace. It's fucking amazing. For a while, I thought it meant that human beings shouldn't really be in relationships together. I guess I figured out it just means they shouldn't be doing them the way they are. It's absolutely impossible. When someone demands another person love them for them, it's a rejection of personal responsibility. It's a person's own responsibility to love them for them. When you love yourself for yourself, you're able to love others for them. But if you love others only because they're loving you for you, you're only going to love them for as long as you feel they're loving you for you.
Exactly. You become dependent on them.
Yeah, exactly. And you reject your own personal responsibility for your own. You adopt an insecure position for life. The only thing you can't be separated from is yourself, and until you're completely happy with only that, you'll always be afraid of losing something. And it will keep you from enjoying anything. You can't enjoy something you have if you think you need it, because all you will be able to do is fear losing it. Every moment, the greater the joy of each moment you enjoy with it, the harder the fucking fall is going to look. If you think it's a fall, it's impossible to learn to love yourself holding on to anything that you fear losing. absolutely impossible. Because it will always come back to that one, even if it's one motherfucker, even if it's a half a thing. A half a thing. You have a half a fear of losing something that's going to dominate your whole life.
Period.